Mr. Baker, as a former FDA inspector, are you confident in the quality and safety of generic drugs coming from foreign countries like China and India?
Thanks for that question. The answer is going to be no. I'm not confident about the quality. I am confident in the sites that I've been to, and I've seen world-class sites everywhere in the world manufacturing drugs, and I am confident in taking those products. But for the majority, I would say no.
Dr. Ball, what types of adverse events, deaths did you find foreign medications caused in your research?
So we found examples of cardiac arrest, gastrointestinal hemorrhage, delirium, cellulitis, acidosis. Those were just a random sample I took this morning of the adverse events in our study. There's millions of adverse events that get reported to the FDA's adverse event reporting system. These are just a few. So they're serious. And in this paper, we only counted those adverse events that were caused by the drug, reported by the manufacturer, mandatory to report, and caused serious health outcomes. And there's still millions of those.
Do you think they might be underreported?
So I think underreporting is a problem for recalls and adverse events. And it leverages a lot with what Peter mentioned. The more FDA is present in a facility in an unannounced manner, the less likely an unreporting will go, because you can discover unreported events in these inspections, but not if they're announced weeks or months in advance. Those are exactly the type of things that a firm is likely to hide if they have advance notice. If they don't, it's very hard to hide those things. So the FDA inspection strategy goes hand in hand with reducing these adverse events.
Mr. Daniels, how much supply of drugs do we have if Communist China shuts supply off to the United States?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. The supply chains are interwoven, and I think that's the biggest issue, because you will have specialty pharmaceuticals that are untouched for 6-9 months. But then when you start to get to the end of that supply chain and that manufacturing process, you might have severe runs on the key starting materials or the precursors that are necessary to support that drug manufacturing. In the context of generics, and specifically critical generics like antibiotics, heart medications, insulin, you could see all supply outside of what is used in emergency rooms shut down within months if China decided to stop supply to the United States, especially if they decided to stop supply chains on a supply chain-like sanction, like we've done on forced labor prevention in China. If they stopped the sort of intermediaries from selling to us the goods that are manufactured utilizing their materials, it could be a severe constraint that would look cataclysmic.
Dr. Pierre-Vincenzi, USP is a global organization with labs and operations abroad. From your perspective, are foreign-made drugs consistently meeting USP standards, or do you see widespread quality failures?
Thank you, Senator. And may I also just maybe build a bit on Mr. Daniels' comment. The quantifying if the China were to cut off supply, what would the impact be, is challenging. But in the next about 2 months or so, USP will issue a report that covers about 90% of our generic supply. So not all of it, but a vast majority, that will map down to the key starting material and location of origin. And so we'll actually be the first time ever be able to answer it. A rough number, though, just because we have to start with something, half our medicines come from India, 70-80% of their starting materials come from China. You start to do the math, it's not going to be a majority, but it's going to be a very large percentage of U.S. medicines that would become highly vulnerable. Some completely, but many highly, highly disrupted and short.
And do you have any feel for how much is in the supply chain that's already in the United States? I mean, I can't imagine that I used to run a hospital company. I don't think we sat there and said, let's have 1 year supply of drugs just in case something happens. So do you have any feel for what a typical doctor's office, a group purchasing organization or hospital would have in inventory?
So at the very end of the supply chain is extremely little. But if you were to say what's onshore in the United States at a distributor and such, of course it varies, but it's months, not years and not weeks. It's months. If you continue down to your starting materials and your API, it gets a little longer. And that matters because it makes it hard for us to get signals. Something might happen, the manufacturer stops producing, and everything seems fine for a while. 9 months goes by, and suddenly we have a shortage. It's not really sudden, but it appears sudden at the end because it takes a while for the chain. And since we don't have good transparency, we're not watching this happen as it comes along. So months is the answer.
Okay.
However, as soon as somebody knows it's been cut off, hoarding behavior begins, and the shortage would take a matter of days in real life. In real life, you would know if a hurricane hits a plant and everyone knows there's a problem, everything will be bought up within
Stores
hours.
are empty in hours, actually.
Yeah. So if nobody knows it happened, of course, then would it be months? But odds are it's going to leak, right?
Okay. All right, let me turn it over to Ranking Member